My husband cheated on me with a TikTok influencer, blamed me for it, divorced me, and gave her everything. Weeks later, she dumped him and he tried to move back into my house like nothing happened. I always thought the end would come with shouting, slamming doors, maybe a betrayal I'd slowly piece together, one late-night text at a time. But no, it came silently, all at once. A single moment that cracked my entire world open like glass under a hammer. And it wasn't even supposed to happen that way. It was a random Tuesday. I had come home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. Nothing serious, just a bad headache and the kind of fatigue that clings to your bones. I didn't tell my husband I was coming. I figured I'd surprise him. Maybe we'd have lunch together. Maybe he'd hold me for a bit while I took a nap. Something normal, comforting. I opened the door to our apartment and noticed something strange immediately. His car was in the lot, but the front door was locked from the inside. That never happens when he's home. I knocked, confused. No answer. So I used my key. What I walked into felt like a dream, or rather, a nightmare still too foggy to make sense of. There were 2 glasses on the kitchen counter, a woman's coat draped over the back of the chair. And then I heard it. Laughter, high-pitched, flirty, from our bedroom. I don't remember walking. I just remember standing in the hallway, outside our door, and realizing it was slightly ajar. That's when I saw it. Him, her, in our bed. He didn't hear me, not at first. He was too busy kissing her neck and whispering something I couldn't quite make out. But she saw me. She saw me first. Her eyes went wide, and she clutched the blanket to her chest like she was the one being violated. He turned his head. Our eyes met. And in that second, I think a part of me just stopped existing. He scrambled out of bed, stammering something about, "It's not what it looks like." Classic. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My throat had closed up. My heart felt like it had been wrung out like an old rag. I looked at her again, trying to place her face. That's when it hit me. She was Ava, a TikTok influencer with over 1 million followers. I'd seen her before, on my own For You page, believe it or not. Dance videos, lip syncing, gym selfies with captions like, "If he wanted to, he would." I never imagined she'd be the woman sleeping with my husband. I backed away, quietly. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just walked out, my legs shaking so badly I had to sit in my car for 15 minutes before I could drive. He didn't call. Not right away. 2 hours later, he texted, "We need to talk." When I got home again that night, he was waiting, sitting on the couch like nothing had happened. I asked, "How long?" He didn't even try to lie. "A few months." Why? His face twisted like I was the problem. Because I'm tired, okay? I'm tired of feeling like a failure. I'm tired of coming home to a woman who's always stressed, always working, always too tired for me. I just wanted to feel good again. I couldn't believe it. I stared at him, completely numb. "So you slept with her because I work too much?" "I'm not saying it's all your fault," he said, already getting defensive. "But you're not easy to be with anymore. You don't laugh. You don't dress up. You don't make me feel wanted. You used to light up when I came home. Now you barely look up." I felt like I was floating outside my body, listening to him list off all the ways I had failed him. After everything I'd sacrificed, I was the one working late to pay our bills, while he focused on his passions. I was the one who kept our home together. I was the one who stayed, even when his projects failed, even when the rent was late, even when he doubted himself. And now, after carrying both of us for years, I was being punished for not smiling enough. The audacity was breathtaking. He stood up, almost triumphant. "Maybe this is a sign. Maybe we need to let go before we destroy each other." And just like that, he started talking about divorce, like it was some clean, mature decision between 2 adults who had just drifted apart. But that wasn't what this was. This was betrayal, and gaslighting, and cowardice. He wanted to blow up our marriage, blame me for the wreckage, and walk away with a shiny new influencer on his arm like he'd won something. I sat on the couch, staring into nothing as he paced around the room making his case. And the only thought I could hold on to was, after everything I've done for you, this is how it ends? Not with a fight for us, not with accountability, but with him cheating, blaming me for it, and then packing up to go play house with someone who doesn't even know how to file her taxes? I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too hollow to cry. But that night, as I lay in the guest bedroom, because yes, he still stayed in our bed, I stared at the ceiling and whispered the only thing I could think. This wasn't the end of me. He may have decided it was over, but he had no idea what he had just started. The days following that confrontation moved like a slow-motion car crash. Every hour felt like another inch closer to the wreckage, and no matter how much I wanted to slam on the brakes, it was already too late. We were divorcing, not because we sat down and agreed to it, not because the love had run its course, but because he had already decided it, months before I ever walked in on him. He had rehearsed this, I could tell. Every step of the divorce process felt rehearsed, calculated. He was calm during mediation, cold, almost smug, like he was already living his new life in his head while I was still trying to figure out how to breathe in this one. He spoke in this eerily detached tone, referring to our life as the past, like we were sorting through someone else's memories. He even called our apartment the old place, as if he'd already mentally moved out. And maybe he had, because the more I looked at the details, the more I realized this divorce wasn't a reaction to getting caught. It was a transition, one he'd been planning quietly behind my back. He wanted a clean break, or so he said. No mess, no drawn-out court battle. He told everyone, our friends, his parents, even the lawyer, that we were mature about it, that we were just two people who grew apart. A textbook narrative, something digestible, something that made him look reasonable. But I knew the truth. He had already moved in with her. Avenue, the TikToker. Barely 2 weeks after our separation, I saw an Instagram post. Him in her apartment, shirtless, holding her tiny dog with a stupid caption like, "New beginnings." The comments were flooded with hearts and fire emojis, and she replied to one saying, "Love always finds its way." I wanted to throw up. Not because I still loved him. At that point, I wasn't even sure I did. But because I hated how easy it was for him. How simple he made the betrayal look. As if love was something you could drop off like dry cleaning and pick up again with someone hotter, shinier, more convenient. Meanwhile, I was left picking up the shattered pieces of a life I didn't even get to finish building. He wanted to divide everything 50-50. On paper, that sounded fair. Until I realized how much of our money came from me. I had always been the one with the stable income. He never contributed equally, financially, or otherwise. He called it teamwork. He said, "We're building something together." But now that something was being split in half, and he was walking away with everything he never earned. Worse still, I found out he'd been hiding money. Not a lot, but enough to sting. He had a separate account under his name, probably started months before this, and he funneled little amounts into it over time. Bonus payments from his short freelance gigs. Money from things he sold online. Even a few thousand I thought we'd put into a joint emergency fund had mysteriously disappeared. Now I knew where it went. When I confronted him, he didn't even flinch. "I needed something for myself," he said, "in case things didn't work out." I was stunned. "You were planning for this?" He shrugged. "It's not planning, it's being realistic. We were never going to last." That sentence broke something in me. Not because it was true, but because he believed it. He had already written me out of his story, long before I even knew the plot had changed. I wasn't his partner anymore. I was just a chapter he was eager to close, so he could move on to a prettier, more clickable life. I cried a lot during those weeks, not in front of him, not anymore, but at night, in the shower, in the car, in the middle of grocery store aisles when a song came on. That reminded me of our first apartment. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the humiliation, the erasure, the way he spun the story so he could walk away clean, while I looked like the bitter ex who couldn't move on. But something shifted in me too. Maybe it was the numbness finally wearing off. Maybe it was seeing how easily he replaced me. Or maybe it was just rage disguised as clarity. I stopped reacting, stopped begging, stopped letting him see the hurt. Instead, I started watching, reading the fine print, checking the numbers, tracking patterns. I wasn't going to burn it all down. That wasn't me. But I was going to make sure that if he wanted this new life so badly, he was going to have to pay for it. Not with drama, not with shouting, but with consequences. Real ones. Because he thought I'd just lie down and take it. He forgot who I am, and while he was busy playing house with someone who films makeup tutorials for a living, I was quietly building something he couldn't touch. He thought the divorce was the end. He had no idea it was just my beginning. The funny thing about betrayal is how it sharpens you. At first, I was broken, barely functioning, barely breathing. But pain has a way of burning off the softness, of boiling everything down to something harder, colder, sharper. He thought I would crumble. Instead, I watched. I listened. I learned. During mediation, I played my part well, quiet, agreeable, even polite. I nodded when the lawyer spoke. I let him think he was getting everything he wanted. He assumed I'd take the settlement and disappear, that I'd be too humiliated to fight, that the woman he walked over was gone. But I wasn't gone. I was waiting. I hired a new lawyer, quietly. Someone sharp, aggressive, and most importantly, independent from the mutual contacts we once shared. I gave her everything, every receipt, every transfer, every transaction I had access to. I told her about the gifts, the hotel bookings, the second bank account I suspected he'd been funneling money into, and she found it all. The separate account under his name, the unexplained withdrawals, the missing funds from our shared savings account that he'd accidentally misallocated. The purchases made for Ava with money that, legally, still belonged to both of us. What he didn't realize was that hiding assets during a divorce, especially community property, isn't just dishonest, it's illegal. When we walked into the final asset division hearing, he was confident. He even smiled at me, like this was just some business transaction between two grown-ups. I smiled back. Not because I was okay, but because I knew something he didn't. When my lawyer stood and presented the documentation, pages and pages of financial inconsistencies, bank statements, account activity, he stopped smiling. She spoke with the kind of calm precision that only comes from knowing you've already won. She laid out a timeline of his financial deceit, the dates he opened a separate account, the withdrawals timed perfectly with his business trips, the purchases linked directly to Ava's address. Then she played the audio file I had recorded months earlier before I even caught him cheating. An argument where he openly admitted using our emergency fund to make himself feel better. The room went silent. Even his lawyer looked rattled. The judge reviewed everything, slowly, thoroughly, and then, like clockwork, the consequences fell into place. He was ordered to pay back a portion of the funds he had hidden. The apartment, awarded to me based on my higher contribution and his misuse of shared assets. The savings account, frozen and redistributed, with a larger share given to me. His lawyer tried to argue for leniency, said it was a misunderstanding. The judge wasn't buying it. This wasn't just divorce. This was exposure, and he was finally being held accountable. I didn't gloat. I didn't say a word to him as we left the courtroom. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, as if he'd just realized I wasn't the weak, exhausted woman he thought he could walk all over. I had been that woman once, not anymore. I went home, to my home, and stood in the living room we once shared. It was quiet. It was mine. Every wall, every window, every creaking floorboard. I had fought for it, not because I cared about the space, but because it was symbolic. He tried to take everything from me, but in the end, he only empowered me to take it all back. This wasn't revenge, not really. This was reclamation. And the best part? I never had to raise my voice. I always wondered what rock bottom looked like for him. I used to think it was me walking out of court with everything he thought he'd take with him. I was wrong. It came later, and it was much, much uglier. It started with a message from a mutual acquaintance, just a quick offhand remark. "Hey, not sure if you've seen, but Ava's been posting some wild stuff lately. Out of curiosity, I looked. Her TikTok had turned into a stream of vague but furious clips, cryptic captions like "Know your worth" and "I'm done being used." In one, she was crying in her car. In another, she was packing boxes. And then the post that made everything click. Imagine losing your apartment to a man who said his ex took everything, only to find out she just took back what was hers. I didn't laugh, but I won't lie, my coffee tasted better that morning. He had moved in with Ava after the divorce, told the world she was his fresh start, the soulmate who understood him. But it didn't take long before reality set in. He had no stable income, no assets, no long-term plan, just charm and empty promises. At first, Ava bought it. She posted cute couple selfies, romantic dinners that she probably paid for, and dreamy captions. But after the settlement, the charm wore thin. And apparently, so did her patience. A week later, it happened. It was late, almost midnight. I had just gotten home from a networking event, heels in hand, ready to collapse into bed. I opened the front door and immediately froze. The lights were on. I hadn't left them on. Then I heard noise, clattering in the kitchen. I walked slowly down the hallway, heart pounding, and turned the corner to see him. Standing in my kitchen, boiling water like it was just another Thursday night. He turned around, completely unfazed. "Oh, hey, didn't know you'd be home this late." I blinked. "What the hell are you doing here?" He shrugged. "Ava kicked me out. Said she needed space. I didn't have anywhere else to go." "So you came here?" "It's just temporary. I still had the key. Figured it'd be fine." "Fine?" My voice cracked. "You broke into my home." "I didn't break in," he said casually. "The key still works. Technically, this place is legally mine, awarded by the court, and you don't live here. You don't belong here." He sighed like I was being difficult. "Look, I just needed somewhere to crash. I thought you of all people would understand." That was it. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I walked over, picked up my phone, and started dialing. "What are you doing?" "Calling the police." His eyes widened. "You're serious?" "As a heart attack." He stepped forward. "Come on, don't do this. It's me. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just needed a place to sleep. Not my problem." "You're really going to throw me out into the street?" I met his eyes. No pity left, no softness. "I gave you a home, a life, a second chance. You set it all on fire. You don't get to come back for the ashes." I turned away, calmly giving the dispatcher my address and explaining the situation. He didn't argue anymore, just stood there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. When the police arrived, I showed them the paperwork. They didn't need much convincing. He gathered his things, just 2 pathetic duffel bags, and left without looking back. I locked the door behind him. This time, I changed the locks the very next morning. And as the locksmith drilled through the last physical reminder of him, I realized something. He had nowhere else to go. Not because he had no roof, but because he had burned every bridge. Ava didn't want him. I didn't want him. Even his charm, once his deadliest weapon, was now useless. Because everyone had seen who he really was. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even relieved. I was free. He had tried so hard to start a new life at my expense. And now, while he wandered from couch to couch, trying to charm his way back into relevance, I was home, in a space that was mine, built on truth, hard work, and peace. He was gone, and all I could think was, thank God I divorced that loser.